It's time for all the news you need and more. Brookland is Live starts right now.
If I could get my mic unmuted, maybe I could start the show. Welcome to Brookland News Live. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It is Friday, let's check the date here, May 29th, 1:57 here in Brooklyn. And it is, let me think, 11:57 on the West Coast, 2:58 now on the East Coast. Thank you for joining us here. Sorry, I'm doing my calculations in my head of the time zones. Okay, thank you for joining us. We're starting a few minutes early because we do have a live feed
President Trump issued the America
that we want to take you to right now. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is speaking at an event at the Reagan Foundation, at the Reagan Library, I should say, in Simi Valley, California, an event held by Reagan Foundation. Let's listen in.
instead of an instrument of national strategy. Last April, the president declared a national emergency tied to the cumulative effects of foreign trade practices and announced reciprocal tariff actions framed explicitly around national and economic security. Again, people can debate design, sequencing, and scope. Healthy democracies should debate those questions, but no one should miss the larger point. Chronic, reciprocal agreements, industrial hollowing, and strategic import dependence are not questions of commerce alone. They are fissures in our country's foundation. A few weeks later, President Trump signed executive action on processed critical minerals and derivative products under Section 232, expressly linking import dependence to risks for national security, defense readiness, and price stability, and economic resilience. Some have tried to weaponize critical minerals against us, but this administration is ensuring they will not succeed. On maritime strength, President Trump signed an executive order to restore America's maritime dominance, established a new Office of Maritime and Industrial Capacity at the National Security Council, and called for a maritime action plan to rebuild U.S. shipbuilding capabilities. This is what it looks like to connect industrial capacity, logistics resilience, workforce development, and national security in one strategic frame. Finally, on pharmaceuticals, President Trump signed an executive order to fill the strategic active pharmaceutical ingredients reserve so that America is never again caught flat-footed when access to critical drug components is at risk. Last month, the White House also highlighted further action to impose tariffs on patented pharmaceutical products while noting parallel Section 232 investigations involving personal protective equipment, medical consumable devices, and robotics. The strategic message is unmistakable. Supply chain resilience in medicine will no longer be an afterthought. This broader reorientation is also visible in the administration's trade agenda for 2026 as we work to secure reciprocity, strengthen domestic production, and align America's external economic relationships with our core national interest. Taken together, these efforts reflect the broader principle that President Trump has articulated clearly. Economic security is national security. But let me be direct about what that doctrine does not mean. It does not mean retreating from the world. On the contrary, it means engaging with it on a stronger, fairer, and more sustainable terms. It does not mean severing ties indiscriminately. It means distinguishing healthy interdependence from dangerous overdependence. It does not mean rejecting efficiency. It means refusing to worship efficiency when efficiency leaves our nation exposed. And it does not mean treating allies and adversaries alike. It means bringing our trading relationships and our security relationships back into alignment by building supply chains with trusted partners where appropriate, rebuilding capacity at home where necessary, and ensuring that the economic architecture supporting American power strengthens American security. Of course, America still holds enormous advantages, among them the world's deepest capital markets, extraordinary innovators, abundant energy potential, leading universities, and unmatched entrepreneurial culture, and workers who can outbuild and outcompete anyone so long as the playing field is fair. All we needed was a government willing to declare that as decline is a choice, renewal can be one too. So yes, while America slept, our vulnerabilities grew. While America slept, too many leaders accepted failed supply chains as the price of modern life. While America slept, we let industrial policy erode and Main Street decay. We tolerated unfairness in the name of stability and conflated market access with strategic success. But America has awakened. We are alert to the fact that a resilient economy is the foundation of a strong republic, that we can measure the health of our economy not merely by what it produces, but whom it lifts, that secure supply chains matter as much as stock indices, that productive capacity is power, that trade policy, industrial policy, and national security policy must all fit together, or they will each fail separately. So let me end where I began, with President Reagan's reminder to identify where we went wrong and to recover our faith in what can go right. If we learn from our mistakes, if we rebuild what we neglected, if we reward production as well as consumption, if we prize resilience alongside prosperity, as President Trump has been doing, then this country will not simply patch over our vulnerabilities. It will enter a new season of national strength with a more robust Main Street and industrial base than ever before. Safer supply chains, more secure medicines, more reliable access to critical minerals, a revived maritime capacity, a financial system aligned with a national purpose, and trading partnerships that reinforce rather than undermine our security relationships. Indeed, the strength of this republic lies in not denying that the old consensus failed. Instead, we must restore resilience where complacency took hold, rebuild capacity where dependence took root, and above all, recover the confidence to believe a nation that knows how to build, invent, produce, and lead is never destined for decline. While America slept, our vulnerabilities grew, but under President Trump's leadership, we are alert to the risk we can no longer ignore and attuned to the responsibility we can no longer defer. Under President Trump, we have awoken to morning again in America, and our best days, I believe, still lie ahead. Thank you all. I look forward to exploring these themes in further conversation with Larry. Thank you.
Alrighty there, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent speaking. He is going to now sit down and have a further conversation in kind of a panel type format, but before that was his speech. So you were just listening in there for the first 6 minutes or so about our live stream of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent delivering remarks in Simi Valley, California at the Reagan National Economic Forum. We're going to sneak in our first break of the hour. When we come back, we've got more for you. You're watching Brooklyn News Live. Okay, I apologize to step out of that break, but it looks as if we are having a few technical issues with the break. So if you guys will stand by with me, I will get that ready for you guys. I apologize again about that. Here we go. We're going to try this one more time. This time it should work. I say that. Here we go. Okay, we're going to be right back with more news. Welcome back into Brooklyn News Live. This story we're going to bring you here next over on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers spoke earlier today to the press after a closed-door hearing with former Attorney General Pam Bondi. If you remember, when she had been fired by President Trump, there was, well, a lot of discussion by Democrats and Republicans whether she was still going to testify in a House and Senate hearing over her handling over the Epstein files, as there had been an investigation ongoing that ultimately did go through. Today, she testified in front of House lawmakers, and they did speak to the press, so you want to air that press conference for just a moment. It's about 26 minutes long, but we'll just air a few minutes of it, excuse me.
Then I'm going to have a few folks are also going to give some remarks, and then I'll answer any questions. We are on a break right now from the interview, and so I want to make sure that we answer some questions. Let me just start by sharing with the American public where we're actually right now in this transcribed interview. To repeat what we continue to say, it is a shame and a disservice to the American people that this interview is not being recorded, videotaped, and then released to the American public, and that she was not brought in under oath. We continue to say that this should be recorded by video and released to the American public, and we're also asking that Chairman Comer immediately release the transcripts that right now are being done throughout today. I want to also say just a few other things. It is clear in just this part of the interview that she continues to push all of the investigation and the blame on acting AG Todd Blanche. She said, and I quote, "Acting AG Blanche was managing the entire investigation," end quote. And what you're going to hear in that interview, and what she's saying here in her words and remarks, is that it was Todd Blanche, the current acting AG, that was leading the Epstein investigation, and quite frankly, all of the mistakes that we saw, the redactions, not protecting survivors, she continues to push that back onto the acting AG, Todd Blanche, who, by the way, was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. I also personally asked the former AG 5 times and 5 different questions about her conversations with President Trump, whether he directed her at any given time on the Epstein files, what he knew, what he asked her to redact or not, and she refused to answer any questions about President Trump. In fact, she said that she would not speak or respond to any questions that had anything to do with President Trump. It's also interesting that sitting next to her is DOJ counsel, somebody that currently works for the Department of Justice, who on multiple occasions stepped in and told the former Attorney General that she was not going to answer those questions, and especially when we asked questions of what the president directed her to do. And so the DOJ is in there right now stopping questions about President Trump and about what happened in the release of these files and why so many survivors were doxxed and their information, of course, released to the public. And let me also just say, finally, before I turn this over to Liz, to Ms. Stein here, we asked questions about Ghislaine Maxwell and the transfer. And again, she referred those questions to Todd Blanche in the Bureau of Prisons. So let's be clear, we have many questions for Mr. Blanche and for the Bureau of Prisons that yet Republicans are refusing to ask. Why was she transferred to a less secure facility? And Ms. Bondi claims to have no knowledge of the actual transfer, no knowledge that it was a less secure prison, and didn't know about it until she found out after the fact, and then will refuse to answer additional questions. So let me introduce Ms. Stein, of course, who a brave survivor, with some remarks.
Thank you. My name is Liz Stein. In 1994, I was 21 years old and a senior in college when I met Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. For years, the Epstein case has been treated like entertainment in this country. A spectacle, a conspiracy theory, an endless cycle of headlines and social media focused on sensationalism and powerful people. Republicans versus Democrats, conspiracy versus cover-up, left versus right. That framing is wrong. What has gotten lost in all of this is the reality of what this is: the crime of sex trafficking. More than 1,000 vulnerable girls and young women were identified, groomed, trafficked, and abused in a system Jeffrey Epstein built around power, coercion, exploitation, and access to wealth and influence. And I think many Americans still do not fully understand what that means, because if they did, they would never accept the way that this case is being handled. The partial release of the Epstein files, riddled with redactions that expose identifying information about survivors while protecting perpetrators, is not just bureaucratic incompetence. It reflects something much deeper about whose dignity our Department of Justice is prioritizing and whose suffering it is willing to sacrifice. And survivors see that clearly. For survivors, privacy is safety. Privacy is dignity. Privacy is the ability to rebuild a life without being re-traumatized by the very institutions that are supposed to protect us. And while survivors' identifying information was exposed, the Department of Justice is simultaneously telling the American people that there are no additional investigative leads worth pursuing. We can see with our own eyes when we look at the Epstein files that this is not true. These files contain leads, names, connections, friendships, patterns, witnesses, travel records, financial relationships, and institutional failures. In any other sex trafficking case of this magnitude, those leads would be aggressively pursued. But in this case, they have not been. And as citizens of this country, we should all be asking why. That is why people are losing trust in our Department of Justice. Not because this case is politically inconvenient, but because Americans understand instinctively that justice should not operate differently for wealthy people who have power. And that is also why many of us have serious concerns about today's proceedings. This should not be a transcribed interview. Former attorney Pam Bondi should testify under oath on video with a full transcript and recording released publicly, because the American people deserve transparency, and accountability cannot only exist when it's politically convenient. For survivors, this has never been about politics. It's about whether we, as victims of this crime, matter when the cameras are off. It's about whether the United States Department of Justice is willing to fully confront a massive sex trafficking operation when wealthy and powerful people are implicated. That should concern every American, because if the law only applies selectively, it is liberty for some, but not justice at all. Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Melanie Stansbury.
Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Stansbury, and I represent New Mexico's 1st Congressional District. And I want to be clear today that one thing is clear, that this is absolutely a cover-up and a smokescreen to prevent Pam Bondi from having to testify under oath pursuant to a congressional subpoena. Now, let me explain a few things about what we have seen in the room. First and foremost, if Pam Bondi was complying with a congressional deposition to testify under oath, Department of Justice attorneys would not be intervening and essentially trying to stop her from answering basic questions about her conversations with Donald Trump, with the administration, and trying to claim that she does not have to answer questions. In fact, as the ranking member said, she has been asked multiple times about the Trump administration, about her conversations with the president, about her conversations with other administration officials. And when asked specifically about a conversation with Donald Trump, one of the Department of Justice attorneys intervened and said that she did not have to answer the question because it was a voluntary interview, and said, in fact, quote, we don't even have to assert privilege because of that, and said, quote, "We refuse to provide answers."
Alrighty there, you are listening to a press conference coming into us right now from, or just this morning, excuse me, from lawmakers who addressed the press after a closed-door interview with Pam Bondi over her handling and the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi, of course, is the former Attorney General. A quick break. We'll be back in a few more moments with the continuance, excuse me, of this press conference. You're watching Brookland News Live on this Friday. Alrighty, welcome back here live at the Brookland News Live. I'm Jackson Mitchell, still with you here on this Friday. We're going to get to lawmakers, that press conference we're listening to before the break coming up in just a moment. But before that, a live look outside in Brooklyn. The rain has calmed down, thank goodness, but it's not done just yet. We could see some more showers as we go into the weekend, so that is going to be something to watch for. Let's take you back live to that press conference from just moments ago, or this morning, I should say, after a closed-door interview that the lawmakers pointed out had no cameras in the room, no audio recordings that will be released to the public or anything like that, with Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General, who was interviewed over her handling of the Epstein files. Let's listen in.
That means that the United States Department of Justice is intervening on behalf of Pam Bondi to stop her from answering questions about what happened in the cover-up of this case and her conversations with Donald Trump, and is asserting that she does not have to answer questions because she is not required to, because she is not being deposed under oath. This is a cover-up. This will be remembered as the largest cover-up likely in American history, and it is clear that this interview is a smokescreen to try to show the American people that they are complying while they are not. Now, I also want to point out that there is not a single Republican in the room besides the chairman. For a supposed group of individuals who care deeply about justice for the survivors, not a single Republican could be bothered to travel across the country today to come hear testimony from the former Attorney General. Not one. They're not here. And they won't allow this interview to be put on video for the American people to see. And that means that only those of us who are allowed in the room can tell you what is actually happening. And what I can tell you is that when we started to ask difficult questions, Ms. Bondi got combative. The DOJ attorneys began rolling their eyes. They started intervening, and they tried to shut down any questions about the president and this administration's handling of the files. Now, I just want to end by saying this could all end now. The administration could end this by releasing the 3 million files they still have. In fact, Pam Bondi confirmed that they had 6 million files in their possession and have only released 3 million. She said that today. They could end this now by investigating crimes of known perpetrators that we have seen in the files. They could end this now by turning the Epstein files into Epstein trials, and they could end this now by actually speaking with survivors. And Pam Bondi herself said today that she had never spoken to a single survivor. She said that multiple times in the room today. So it's time to end the cover-up now. I turn it now to Mr. Maxwell Frost of Florida's 10th.
Thank you. I'll be really quick. Every single one of our questions got one of three responses. One, not to my recollection, or I don't know. Number two, talk with Todd Blanche. I don't know anything about it. And number three, I am not talking about Donald Trump. Those are the three answers we're getting to every single question that we ask. This actually really reminds me of our deposition with Alex Acosta, where he obviously didn't know anything about anything going on in his own damn office. It's the same thing with Pam Bondi. Either she doesn't know or Todd Blanche was running the entire operation. So, okay, we're going to want to talk with Todd Blanche. And we're hoping that not just Chairman Comer, but every single Republican on this committee join us in issuing a subpoena to him, because we need to speak with him, because obviously the former Attorney General is in that room placing every single thing on the current acting Attorney General of the United States. And the fact that she won't answer any questions relating to Donald Trump is disgusting and shows just how much of a cover-up this is. First, it started off with her saying, I'm not going to talk about any private conversations I've had with the president. Okay. Then we ask questions about the president generally. And she says, I'm not answering any questions having to do with the president at all. Anytime we ask for any information relating to this administration, somebody from the Department of Justice sitting right next to her puts their hand over the mic and tells her, do not answer that question. It's disgusting. It's a cover-up in broad daylight. And what they're hoping will happen is we'll walk out of here and we'll stop, but we're not going to stop. We are committed to this. We're not going to let this story die. We're not going to allow the survivors to just go off, right, and people forget about this. We're going to keep fighting for justice. We're going to talk with Todd Blanche. We're going to talk with people, and we're going to get the answers here. We're not going to let this story die. It's a disgrace what Pam Bondi's doing in that room. It's the same thing she did months ago when she came to try to evade the subpoena by coming in and speaking to us, not under oath, but we're going to keep this fight up.
I got it. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Summer Lee, representing Pennsylvania's 12th Congressional District. And listen, my colleagues have really laid it out. But what we've been seeing has been a consistent theme, not just since last August, when our ranking member Garcia and I were able to help to secure the initial subpoena to actually bring in the DOJ to release all of the files to our committee. But it has been an ongoing theme here. What we just witnessed from Pam Bondi, what she demonstrated, was the fact that they believe and that they are an unaccountable DOJ that's running cover for and protecting an unaccountable president and administration. But the real problem is that while we might expect Donald Trump to move in this way, someone who has himself been named in these files, we shouldn't expect that Chairman Comer, that our Congress, that Republicans here, sorry to make it political, but those folks who do have the power to actually use what influence, what tools we have with the United States Congress to actually bring about some justice right now, and to allow her to continually evade justice, to evade questions as we've seen today, is a continuation of the indignity that they've inflicted upon our survivors, the indignity they've inflicted upon the American population, who have continuously had to watch an unaccountable justice system, a two-tiered justice system in our country, and people all over the world who are looking to see if the United States will get their shit together. And the reality is that they are refusing to do that. Every step of this last year that we've gone through this process, which is, as we know, simply a renewed process here, because survivors have been fighting for justice for decades now. But since the Congress has taken up this particular fight in the ways that we've been able to by being able to press for subpoenas, we've seen over and over and over an unwillingness of power to be accountable to people, an unwillingness of our Congress to be a co-equal branch of government with the presidency, with the executive branch, and surely an unwillingness for us to actually demonstrate that we are willing to put women, children, and survivors first. So right now, what we want to do and what we're committed to doing is continuing to keep the main story, that justice doesn't have a time limit. And no matter how much Comer or Bondi or Blanche or Trump or whoever else fights back against the truth coming out, that this fight will continue, that we will not relent until every single person who has been impacted, not just by Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, but everyone who's being covered up or hidden in the files or in people's personal knowledge that they won't share truthfully with us, and whether they're unofficial transcripts or real depositions on the record. That it's important that they recognize that not only will the oversight Dems, but also the American people will not back down. The survivors have not and will not back down. And it's important that we continue to keep this pressure on them and remind them that legally binding subpoenas must be answered. So right now, Pam Bondi is in non-compliance with 2 for herself. And we have to keep putting that pressure on them. And we'll continue to do that. I will hand it over now to Rep. Supermanium.
Thank you. I just want to talk about the survivors for a second. Thank you so much for your words. They're here today. They were with us in Palm Beach a few weeks ago when we had a hearing there. And they've asked the Department of Justice repeatedly to meet with them. They've asked repeatedly to release certain files to them, at least, such as their witness statements. And so we asked Pam Bondi about that today. She said it wouldn't be appropriate to meet with them for some reason. She said she doesn't recall anything about them asking for their witness statements. She's forgotten all about all of their requests, even their public letters. It seems as though she was ignoring survivors this whole time, which is pretty astounding to me. So I also asked her pretty basic questions about whether she knew about any effort to look for Donald Trump's name in the files before they were released. And she says she doesn't recall. And so I think it wasn't that long ago before they were releasing the files, yet somehow she doesn't recall things that happened about 6 months ago. And then finally, going back to Ghislaine Maxwell, she said she wasn't involved at all in the process of moving her to another prison, but she wasn't sure if that new prison was even a lower security prison, which factually it is. She also thinks that the Bureau of Prisons is doing a great job, and she said that these things happen all the time because you want to protect some of these folks in prison. Well, that's true. But we'd really need to protect Ghislaine Maxwell right after she just talked to Todd Blanche about the Epstein files. Seemed too coincidental, but again, she doesn't recall a lot of other things. It was a really unimpressive, disappointing interview today, but not surprising to us. We're not going to stop our investigation. Now I'm going to hand it over to Yasmin Ansari.
Thank you. Today's ridiculous charade has made astonishingly clear that the United States Department of Justice has been weaponized by Donald Trump to ensure that the most massive cover-up in American history is carried out. And this is being enabled by Republicans in Congress, led by Republican Chairman James Comer and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. This entire Epstein investigation led by Chairman Comer has been absurd. We have 2 legal subpoenas against former Attorney General Pam Bondi. She is supposed to be here under oath today on video, answering questions for the American people about her role and the direct hand that she had in this cover-up. Instead, she is deflecting, she is refusing to answer questions, and she continues to refuse to answer specific questions about the President of the United States. It is so clear that whether it be Pam Bondi, whether it be Chairman Comer, whether it be Mike Johnson, the entire party is terrified of Donald Trump and his retaliation as it pertains to the cover-up of the Epstein files. It's unacceptable. It is notable that she continues to blame Todd Blanche and Kash Patel. We, of course, want to speak to them, but I think what I want to make clear to the American public and to everybody, and to the survivors especially, is that we are not going to give up on this. I think Republicans believe that they just kind of carry out these nonsense transcribed interviews and don't show up here today, that we will forget about this. We are just getting started as it pertains to accountability and justice for the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and any other rich and powerful person in this country who perpetrated these crimes. I'm going to hand it over to Congressman Min.
Thank you very much. Congressman Dave Min out of California 47. And yes, I have an election in 4 days, very important one. Robert Garcia and I have our primary elections on Tuesday of next week. But I'm here rather than in my district because this is important. We looked the survivors in the eye last year and made a promise.
Alrighty, for about the last about, I would say about 20 minutes or so, you've been listening to lawmakers in the House addressing a closed-door interview that occurred with Pam Bondi. So that is going to be something to monitor throughout the next few days. Of course, it centered on her handling of her department's handling of the Epstein file. Of course, she is the former attorney general and was ousted at her position just nearly a few weeks ago. A live look at the White House right now. So we want to give you an update where things stand with Iran. President Trump and other sources confirming that there was some type of a tentative agreement, confirming reporting that we brought to you yesterday, a tentative agreement to extend the current ceasefire another 60 days, and it would include the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. President Donald Trump on Truth Social saying, quote, Iran must agree that they will never have a nuclear weapon or bomb. The Hormuz Strait must be immediately opened. No tolls for unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. All water mines, in parentheses, their bombs, if any, will be terminated. We have removed through detonation numerous such mines, with our great underwater minesweepers. Iran will complete the immediate removal and or detonation of any mines that are left, which will not be many. Ships caught in this trade due to our amazing and unprecedented naval blockade, which will now be lifted, may start the process of, quote, heading home, which will now be say hello to your wives, husbands, parents, and families from me, your favorite president. The enriched material, sometimes referred to as nuclear dust, which is buried deep underground with virtually collapsed mountains caused by our powerful B-2 bomber attack 11 months ago. Sitting on top of it will be unearthed by the United States, which is agreed is the only country, along with China, with the mechanical capability of doing so, in close coordination and conjunction with the Islamic Republic of Iran, plus the International Atomic Energy Agency, and destroyed. No money will be exchanged until further notice. Other items or far less importance have been agreed to. I will be meeting now in the Situation Room to make a final determination. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. So again, that is breaking news coming into us within the last few moments. President Trump meeting in the Situation Room. That was a truth from this morning. And as we speak, I am loading up Truth Social to see if there has been any current updates from the president or anything that we might need to know. Last thing I'm seeing is President Trump posting a video about TrumpRx.gov about 30 minutes ago or so. So no major updates coming to us from the president. Again, we are monitoring it and we'll bring you guys updates. Okay. What we're gonna do here, we're gonna sneak out a commercial break. When we come back, we've got more news right here in Brooklyn, and then we are going to, as it is now 2:36, we got more news coming up for you. You are watching Brooklyn News Live. We'll be right back. Alrighty, welcome back here live in a Brooklyn News Live. We've got some breaking news. You are taking a look at what appears to be a major fire at an apartment complex in Southern California. This is in Riverside, California. According to KABC, which is the local news affiliate there, they say, quote, a large fire broke out at an apartment complex in Riverside Friday, forcing the evacuation of 2 buildings and sending up a thick plume of smoke. As you can see there, that camera zoomed in really close. This is the local Fox affiliate that has this air shot. KTTV, I believe, is the local affiliate there. I might be incorrect. I think that might be San Francisco, actually. Excuse me, but the local Fox affiliate there providing this camera. They say the fire was reported at the University Riverside Gardens apartment building on Iowa Avenue at near Everton Place. Excuse me. This happened around 11:40 a.m., so it would have been... It is now 12:39 in LA time, in Southern California time, in the West Coast time. So that would have been just before we were coming on the air. They say Air 7. This is, again, a story from the local ABC affiliate. And it appears, was that just an explosion there? Unclear what we're seeing. We're going to keep our eyes on this shot. This comes one day after there was a major fire on an apartment complex in Dallas. So just a day after... a gas explosion at an apartment complex in Dallas had left 3 dead. So this is, again, just so close to each other. But we are monitoring this live scene right now. Again, a large fire. You can see there on your screen in Southern California. This is in Riverside, California. You are able just to see and what we'll do here. Large plumes of smoke coming out there. Here we go. There is a look at it still there on the right side of your screen right now. I'm working to see if we do have any more details. We're changing our system to red here because this is breaking news. Excuse me here. I'm going to be looking at my phone for just a second. I'm trying to see if we can get any new updates. Again, this is at the Riverside, California, at an apartment complex there. This is just one day, again, as I noted a few seconds ago, after a fire at a large complex fire or gas explosion in Dallas. So ironic here. What we're gonna do, we're gonna keep our eyes on this shot here as firefighters continue to battle this fire, and we will bring you updates when we get them. We're going to go back to a commercial break. Change of plans here. What we'll do, we are going to come back in a few moments to this shot at the Reagan National Economic Forum. That is coming up here in just a few moments. I believe it just finished with the Secretary of Transportation, Scott Bessent. We're going to monitor that, and we'll bring you back to it. We've got some other live feeds we want to get to as well. In the meantime, though, we are going to sneak in a quick commercial break. You are watching Brooklyn News Live. We'll continue watching this live shot down the right side of me. We'll be back here in just a few moments. Welcome back here in a Brooklyn News Live. We're interrupting once again in that commercial break because yet again we have some more breaking news that has just come into us just moments ago. If you remember, President Trump had ruled that his name needed to be put on the Kennedy Center. So now it's the Trump Kennedy Center. A federal judge just said moments ago, making a ruling that President Donald Trump can't close or rename the Kennedy Center. Now, we know that the president had ruled and the board there had said it needed to be closed for some renovations. This judge now saying it can't close or rename the Kennedy Center, ruling it cannot be officially named for anyone else unless Congress approves it. This is from a ruling coming in from U.S. District Judge Christopher Cooper, ruling that the rebranding of the Kennedy Center as the Trump Kennedy Center violates the law in order that Trump's name be removed from the building within 2 weeks of this order. No reaction in from President Trump just yet on that ruling. I'm sure we will get a reaction there as you take a look at Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House right now at that live camera. Again, a busy Friday here as we continue to monitor a number of stories. We are waiting for the feed at Simi Valley, California at the Reagan National Economic Forum this year to pick back up. As soon as it does, we will take you there live. We're going to sneak back in. This commercial break here is going to be really quick here. We're going to sneak it in when we come back. More news on the other side. Welcome back live in a Brooklyn News Live. We are watching right now a live news camera from Fox 11 in Los Angeles. So our courtesy to them for having this live shot on what appears to be on what is, I should say, a very large apartment complex fire that has left 2 buildings to be evacuated. You see firefighters at that building right now fighting this fire to the best of their ability. This is in Riverside, California at an apartment complex there. It is a story we are watching and are monitoring. Want to take you to this. This was earlier today. Excuse me here. This was earlier today. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of the Secretary of Health and Human Services. He spoke earlier today at an event on Lyme disease. Let's take a listen here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the New Hampshire State House. On behalf of New Hampshire House of Representatives, it is my honor to welcome Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to Concord for today's very, very important public health announcement during Lyme Disease Awareness Month. We are truly grateful that Secretary Kennedy, the Department of Health and Human Services, chose New Hampshire as part of the Take Back Your Health program tour to highlight this issue, which impacts many families and communities across our state and throughout the country. Thank you for all those being here today, and thank you for those who helped to organize this event. It is now my privilege and honor to introduce United States Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Thank you, Senator Packard, for that kind introduction. And I also want to thank Senate President Sharon Carson and all the other legislators who joined us in the roundtable that we did a few minutes ago. New Hampshire is leading the nation in advancing the Make America Healthy Again agenda. And your legislation is setting an example for the states across the country. And I also want to thank Dr. Stephanie Haridopoulos and Dr. Kristen Honey from HHS as well as Lyme patient Sophie Sargent and Lyme advocates Nancy Doherty and Diana Parrish for joining me on stage. I look forward to hearing your remarks. Millions of Americans living with Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses have struggled for decades to get diagnoses, treatments, and care. They deserve better prevention, better treatments, and real support. And today, led by the Trump administration, we're launching one of the most ambitious federal efforts ever to undertake and combat Lyme disease, accelerate research, and improve care for parents and families. Doctors diagnose 476,000 Americans with Lyme disease every year. This spring, Americans visited an emergency room for tick bites more than any other time in history, a clear sign that this threat is growing. Lyme disease affects all 50 states. New Hampshire has one of the highest infection rates in the country. Roughly 60% of the black-legged ticks tested in this state have been found to carry the spear trait. It's likely that nearly everyone in this room has either battled Lyme disease or personally watched someone that they love struggle with it. I lived in for many years in Bedford, New York, which is one of the epicenters of Lyme infections. And myself, my wife, and my 6 kids have all been diagnosed with Lyme disease in the 1980s. And I've seen its effects on people. One of my sons had his face paralyzed for a year. But I've seen much worse than that. I have people suffering, having their lives devastated, their careers devastated, their capacities to support their family, and just living in pain all the time. And one of the real tragedies now is that Americans can't go in the woods anymore safely. And going in the woods to hike, to fish, to hunt, to photograph, or just to walk in the woods is part of this seminal experience of being an American, in particular an American child. And it's a science fiction nightmare that we now live in, that parents have to worry about their children going to the woods. When I was a kid, our parents would lock us out during the daytime and tell us go to the woods and come back when the dinner bell rings. And kids can't do that today. And we already have an epidemic of social media and screens that Dr. Herodopoulos has outlined in her recent report from the Surgeon General's office. And if we can't send our kids safely in the woods, we don't really leave them with too many options. So it's something that I take seriously because of my personal experience, but also just because of my concern for the American experience. For years, Lyme disease patients fought hard to be heard, while much of the healthcare system failed them. Doctors would often tell patients, it's your imagination, it's something else. There's no such thing as Lyme disease. And I've heard people, person after person, tell me those horror stories. And now we've had a series of roundtables at HHS with the best physicians in the country who are successfully treating Lyme disease. And we've launched a program to actually develop protocols for treating all of its different iterations. People present differently depending on their own biomarkers with Lyme disease, and they have to be treated differently. And a treatment, there's no silver bullet. A treatment that works for one patient does not work with the others. And we are focused on developing reforms for diagnostics, for biomarkers, and for specific treatments for specific groups of people. And we now have a website where people who suffer Lyme disease can go to find the doctors who are actually treating it successfully. And we're also making an effort to educate doctors across the country about how to recognize this disease, how to treat it, or at least how to direct people to the clinics that are successfully treating thousands, in some cases tens of thousands of patients. For years, Lyme disease patient. President Trump has changed all this. He began changing it during his first term by making Lyme disease a national priority. In 2019, President Trump signed the K-Hagen Tick Act, creating the first national strategy to prevent and control vector-borne diseases in America. Under that law, HHS expanded research, strengthened innovation, and advanced the public-private collaborations. I recently called on Congress to reauthorize the Tick Act. The House Energy and Commerce Committee advanced the bill unanimously, and I will continue fighting to get it across the finish line. We're not waiting for Congress to act. NIH is already investing nearly $50 million in Lyme disease research and another $122 million in tick-borne disease research, including prevention, diagnostics, and treatment. Our goal is clear: reduce Lyme disease cases by 25% by 2035 compared to 2022 levels. Today, my agency is launching a major new multi-million-dollar pilot program that has the potential to transform how we prevent Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses in America. Through this initiative, CDC and HHS will partner with leading tick control researchers to develop and deploy practical strategies that target and eliminate ticks on wildlife before they can spread the disease to humans. As most of you know, we didn't really have a tick problem in this country until the 1980s. And virtually all the deer were eliminated east of the Mississippi by 1900. And as those deer have proliferated and become very common, the ticks have also proliferated. All three species of ticks that carry disease breed on the deer, and they require the deer in order to breed. They'll bite the turkeys, they'll get blood meals from mice, but it's the deer that allow them to breed. The deer, interestingly, don't carry the Lyme disease, so they're immune to it. They don't spread it. If that tick gets a blood meal of a mouse, the mice are highly infected. And so our control policies are developing protocols for making deer.
Alrighty there, you were listening into an event at Concord, New Hampshire from earlier today. Secretary of the Health and Human Services, speaking on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there, speaking on Lyme disease in New Hampshire. Alrighty, that's going to wrap things up for us on this busy start of the end of the week, here. It's Friday, May 29th. Remember, we will be back here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day next week. I'm going to do my best to make sure I'm not busy. I'm here bringing you guys the stories that matter. Remember, you can join us each and every weekday at 2 p.m. For now, I'm Jackson Mitchell signing off. Have a great rest of your weekend. Stay safe. Don't get involved in any of the flooding or nothing. Bye, guys.